This video covers section 2.6 in college algebra, composition and operations of functions. So f of x, g of x, those are all ways to write functions instead of y equals, so you can tell the difference. And there's different ways to show the operations of those. So if you see either of these, f of x plus g of x, or f plus g in parentheses of x, both of those are saying plug in x to these and add them together. When it looks like this, f of x minus g of x, or f minus g of x, it's saying plug the number in and subtract them. The same goes for f of x, g of x, or fg of x, multiply them. And then all four of these ones are going to show you division, because the division symbol can be used or the fraction can be used. So all of those four things mean divide. So now let's go into what that means. Here we have f of x equals x squared plus 1, g of x equals 3x plus 5. The first problem is asking us f plus g of 1. So what that means is we plug 1 into f of x, plug 1 into g of x, and then add those answers together. So f of 1 is going to be 1 squared plus 1, which is 2. G of 1, using this equation over here, is going to be 3 times 1 plus 5, which gives us 8. And then we add them together, so 2 plus 8 is 10. So the next one is f minus g of negative 3. So we're going to do the same thing. F of negative 3 is negative 3 squared plus 1. 9 plus 1 is 10. Then we do g of negative 3. So 3 times negative 3 is 9, or negative 9, plus 5 is negative 4. And now we're going to subtract. 10 minus negative 4 is 14. If you think you're good, pause the video and try the next two. If you need more help, watch me walk through them. Fg of 5, this is saying multiply. So first we got to plug 5 in. F of 5 is 5 squared plus 1, which is 26. G of 5 is 3 times 5 plus 5, which is 15 plus 5, which is 20. And then we multiply them. 26 times 20 is going to be 520. F of g of 0, or f divided by g of 0, so f of 0 is 0 squared plus 1, which is 1. G of 0 is 3 times 0 plus 5, which is 5. And then we divide them and get 1/5. That's how you do it with numbers. Now these next two, we're going to do the exact same thing with f of x and g of x. But now, instead of giving us numbers, they're going to give us an x. So we just do what it says with the equations that are already there. So we might be combining like terms, we might be multiplying, we just do what's said. So here we have f plus g of x. So f of x is 8x minus 9. G is square root of 2x minus 1. And then we add them together. There's no like terms or anything like that. So that's as far as we can go on that one. Now, if we did the next one, same thing, f of g of x. F of x is 8x minus 9. G of x is 2x minus 1. This time we're just subtracting them. All right, now we do our multiplying. So it's like saying 8x minus 9 times square root 2x minus 1. Now, if there wasn't a square root there, we would FOIL. Just reduce as much as you can. Foiling lists would just end up with 2 radicals, so that's as neat as it can get. And then the last one would be 8x minus 9 over square root 2x minus 1. And again, that's as far as we can get it at this point in time. Let's look at the domain of each of these. Now, the domain of a linear function, like f of x, is negative infinity to infinity. The domain of a square root, because you can't you can't have negatives in there, 2x minus 1 has to be greater than or equal to 0 in order to make this true. So we would add 1 to both sides and then divide by 2, so x is greater than or equal to 1/2, or 1/2 to infinity. So those are our original domains. Let's look at the others. So this x here isn't going to do anything to our domain because it would be linear. So we still have to worry about what's under the radical, which can't be negative. So anytime you take whatever's under the radical and say greater than or equal to 1 or to 0, add 1, divide by 2, and we get x is greater than or equal to 1/2, which in interval notation is this. The blue one's going to be exactly the same because it's the same radical. The green one's going to be exactly the same because it's the same radical. What are we doing? Greater than. Okay. Now, the yellow one is going to be the same numbers, but here you can't have 0 on the bottom of a fraction. So you, instead of being greater than or equal to, it would be greater than 1/2. So we just have parentheses and no equal sign. That's how it works with the x's instead of the numbers. You can also use the graph. So we're going to say that f of x is the red line, g of x is the blue line, and we're going to do these together. So f plus g of 4 means we go to 4 and we find f and g. F at 4 is 4, and g at 4 is 2. 4 plus 2 is 6. Okay, now let's do f minus g of negative 2. So negative 2 is here. F is negative 2. And there is no g. So we can stop there. It doesn't exist because we can't add anything together. Now let's look at f of g of 1. So at 1, they're both 1. F is 1, g is 1, 1 times 1 is 1. And then 0, they're both 0. So 0 divided by 0, it's undefined. There's no solution. You can't have a 0 on the bottom. All right, let's look at a couple more things here. You can plug in anything it tells you to plug in. Your goal is to just do what it says and work from there. Reduce if possible. So here, we're saying plug in x plus h. So for f of x, instead of x squared, I'm just going to write x plus h squared. To square a binomial means we have 2 of them. So we would FOIL, first times first, outside times outside, inside times inside, last times last, and then combine like terms. So we have 2 of the xh term. That's as reduced as I can get that one. Now let's try this one. So it's saying 2x, so we put x plus h here, minus 5 times x plus h squared. So if I distribute here, we get 2x plus 2h. Oops. And then here we would have to do our foiling. So we would get, 2x plus 2h minus 5 times what we just got over here, x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. Normally I'd do it out, but we literally just did it. Distribute that 5. So we'd get 5x squared, negative 10xh minus 5h squared. And there's nothing we can combine because there's no terms that are the same. So that's as reduced as we can get it. All right, these next, well, there's that. Okay. Now we're going to look at what's called composition. So this little open circle is different than multiplication. Multiplication, it'll either be like a closed-in dot or they'll be right next to each other. This open circle means f of g of x. So if you have a number, you plug it into g of x, and then you take the answer and plug it into f of x. That's what that means. If you just have an x, it's saying where you take g, and wherever you see x in f of x, you write the whole function of g. So let's look at this. So we have f and g over here, right there. And here we're saying fog, that's another way to see it, fog, or f of g of 2. So we go inside out. First we do g of 2, which would be 4 over 2 minus 1, which is 4 over 1, which is 4. Then we take that 4 and plug it into f. So 2 times 4 minus 1 would be 8 minus 1 is 7. You try it on the other one. Notice the difference. The only difference here is we say goff because we're switching the order. So you do f first because it's g of f of negative 3. So pause the video and try that. Check in when you're ready. All right, so f of negative 3 would be 2 times negative 3 minus 1, which is negative 6 minus 1 is negative 7. And then we do g of negative 7, which would be 4 over negative 7 minus 1. Negative 7 minus 1 is negative 8, which reduces to negative 1/2. All right, let's check these out. Same thing with the x. So goff is telling us g of f of x. So wherever we see the x in the g, we're going to put this whole term. So g is 2x squared. So instead of x, I'm going to do 4x plus 1. And then plus 5x. I'm going to do 4x plus 1 again. And now we just do the math out. So if I do 4x plus 1 squared, 4x times 4x is 16x squared. 1x plus 4x, or times 4x is 4x. 1 times 4x is 4x. 1 times 1 is 1. Distribute the 2 to all of those pieces. We get 32x squared plus 8x plus 8x plus 2. And if I distribute these pieces here, 5 times 4x is 20x, and 5 times 1 is 5. Then we combine like terms. So we have 32x squared. 8 and 8 is 16, plus 20 is 36x, and then 2 plus 5 is 10. 2 plus 5 is 7, not 10. So that is what we get if we do goff. You try fog and see how you do. All right, so what that's saying is we're going to f of g of x. So we're going to plug g into f this time. So instead of x, I write 2x squared plus 5x. Now I'm going to distribute. So I get 8x squared plus 20x plus 1, and that's as far as I can get. All right, let's do one more section, one more problem in this section, one more problem in this chapter. It's all the same. Suppose a businesswoman invests $1,500 as her fixed cost in a new venture that produces and sells devices for satellite radio. Each device costs $100, and she sells them for $125. Give the cost function. So her cost is the $1,500 total plus $100 each. Revenue is the amount coming in. So that's what she sells it for, 125x. Now, profit is revenue minus cost. So this is an example of how we can do that function subtraction. So revenue minus cost, and I want to put it in parentheses because I'm subtracting and I don't want to forget to distribute this negative sign. So it would be negative 1,500 minus 100x. And if we combine like terms, we would get 25x minus 1,500. That's our profit function. Now, if we want to make a profit, that means this function, 25x minus 1,500, needs to be greater than 0. We want to make money. So we would add 1,500 to both sides. Divide by 25. And X is greater than 60, which means as long as she sells more than 60, she'll make a profit. Exactly 60 would be 0, so the more than is important. So that's the end of chapter 2. Let me know if you have any questions.